Imagine the man who controls trillions waking up with nothing. No jet, no mansion, no stocks, no Berkshire Hathaway. Just a small bed, an old phone, and a note on the nightstand that says, "Good luck, Warren. Start from zero." He checks his pockets. $27.15. The Oracle of Omaha, who once moved entire economies, now has to decide between breakfast and the bus. The TV talks about markets rising, but he's worried about something far more real: rent. The world still calls him a genius, but nobody recognizes the 94-year-old man in line at the grocery store. And the question that hooks us all: does a billionaire's mind survive when the money disappears? It's 6:42 a.m. Warren stares into the mirror and realizes that, for the first time in 70 years, he's nobody. No investor, no legend, just a man trying to understand the price of bread. What he does next changes everything. Warren woke up to the sound of car horns echoing through the street. The ceiling above him was cracked, the sheets rough, and the air smelled of burnt coffee. He rubbed his eyes, confused. The room was small, plain, nothing like the quiet luxury he once knew. For a moment he thought it was a dream. Then he reached into his pockets. Nothing. No wallet, no watch, not even a dollar. Only silence and the echo of his own breath. He sat on the edge of the bed, blinking hard, trying to remember how it happened. There was no fall, no crash, no warning, just emptiness. On the nightstand lay a note. "Good luck, Warren. Start from zero." He laughed nervously as if someone were filming a cruel joke. "Start from zero," he repeated, shaking his head. He was Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, a man who built empires out of logic. Yet now, logic couldn't even buy him breakfast. In the kitchen he found a fridge buzzing like a dying bee. Inside, a bottle of water and half a loaf of stale bread. A note taped to the door read, "Rent due on the 10th. Please don't be late." He chuckled. "Rent," he said softly. "Interesting concept." Counting his pockets again, he found $27.15. He smiled. Well, it's not a fortune, but it's liquidity. He folded the bills neatly, like they were stocks that still meant something. Outside, the world was noisy and alive. He felt invisible among strangers who hurried to work, eyes fixed on the ground. A small diner glowed at the corner, smelling of bacon and hope. He walked in and sat down. "Coffee, please," he said, and the waitress smiled. $3. Warren raised his eyebrows. $3? For coffee? "Welcome to Omaha, sir," she replied. He nodded. "Inflation's alive and well, I see." He took the first sip and felt the warmth spread through his chest. The taste wasn't perfect, but it felt real. Around him, workers in uniforms laughed between bites of toast. No one cared who he was. No cameras, no investors, no headlines, just people trying to make it through another Tuesday. He realized this was the first morning in decades that he wasn't expected to know all the answers. For once, he could just sit there and be human. When the cup was empty, he cleaned the table out of habit. The waitress noticed. "You're polite," she said. "Looking for work?" He froze for a moment, then smiled. "Depends on what you've got." "We need a dishwasher," she said, pointing toward the back. Warren blinked. "A dishwasher?" She nodded. "Pays cash." He laughed softly. "Well," he said, "one asset is better than none." The apron was too tight, the gloves too thin, and the sink overflowed with dishes. He stared at the mountain of plates, steam rising like fog from a factory. "The dirty dish market," he muttered. "High demand, low glamour." He began to wash, his movements careful, methodical. The owner passed by and asked, "You done this before?" Warren grinned. "Not exactly, but I used to clean up entire companies." Hours later, his hands ached. He wasn't used to labor, to heat, to this rhythm of survival. Sweat rolled down his face, stinging his eyes. When his shift ended, the owner handed him a sandwich as payment for the trial. Warren took a slow bite, chewing thoughtfully. So this is what effort tastes like, he thought. Strange how something so simple can feel like profit. That night he sat by the window, notebook on his lap. The streetlight flickered outside, painting gold lines on the paper. He wrote, "Lesson 1. Money buys time, but losing it teaches value." He underlined the words twice and smiled. He had survived day one, not rich, not famous, but alive, and learning again. If this story made you stop and think, subscribe for the next chapter of Warren's journey, where wisdom meets the real world.
Warren woke before the sun. His back ached from yesterday's labor, but his mind was wide awake. He had survived one day without billions. That, he thought, was a kind of victory. He looked around the small apartment, now familiar in its simplicity. No servants, no silence, no polished floors, just life, raw and unfiltered. He smiled faintly, grabbed his notebook, and wrote, Day 2. Adapt or die. Outside, Omaha was waking up. The smell of bread, the noise of engines, and the chatter of early workers filled the air. On the corner, a fruit stand caught his attention. The man behind it looked exhausted, wiping sweat with the back of his hand. Warren stopped and watched the flow of customers, or rather, the lack of them. Mind if I help? He asked. The seller laughed. You got experience? Warren replied. Plenty. Just not in fruit. He noticed bruised apples on display and uneven prices scrawled on cardboard. Your product looks tired, Warren said softly. The man shrugged. They'll sell eventually. Warren shook his head. They'll rot first! He started rearranging the fruit, separating the bright from the dull. People buy with their eyes, he said. Within an hour, the stall looked alive. By lunchtime, sales had doubled. The vendor clapped his back. Guess you do no business. Warren smiled. It's all the same game, different pieces. As the afternoon heat rose, he decided to move on. He still needed steady income. A few blocks away, he spotted a sign in a diner window. Hell wanted! Waiter! He stepped inside, greeted by the smell of grease and chatter. The manager, a stout man with kind eyes, looked him up and down. You ever served people before? Warren chuckled. 70 years of shareholders. Think that counts? The man grinned. You're hired. The first shift was chaos. Plates clattered, orders blurred together, and customers grew impatient. Warren, unshaken, smiled through every mistake. When he dropped a glass, he looked at the mess and said, That one just crashed faster than the 2008 market. Laughter rippled through the room. The tension broke. He realized humor was his new currency. During his short break, he sat outside with the younger staff. One of them, a college dropout, talked about wanting to start a food truck. But I can't save money, the kid sighed. Warren nodded. Start with saving habits, not dollars. Habits compound faster. The boy frowned, trying to understand. Think of your time as capital, Warren added. How you spend it decides your return. The kid smiled. You should teach this stuff. Warren grinned. Maybe I will. By the end of the day, his feet burned, but he felt strangely proud. The manager handed him $20 in tips. Customers liked you, he said. Warren looked at the money, feeling its weight. Not in value, in meaning. He bought a sandwich and ate slowly, watching people hurry by. Every face was a story of effort. Every coin, a victory. On his way home, he stopped at a thrift store and bought a pair of used shoes. Comfort is an investment, he said to himself. Outside the shop, he met a shoe shiner working fast, hands moving like a machine. How many pairs a day? Warren asked. 30, if I'm lucky. Buffett did the math. Margins, costs, profit. You run a better business than most CEOs, he said, smiling. That night, back in his small room, he lit a candle and opened his notebook. Lesson 2. The same mind that builds wealth can rebuild life. He stared at the words, realizing that maybe losing everything had forced him to find what truly mattered. He leaned back, exhaled, and smiled. Tomorrow, he'd invest again. Not in stocks, but in himself. CTA, if this story inspired you even a little, share it with someone who needs to believe that starting over is possible. Warren woke up before dawn with a strange excitement. His body was sore, but his mind was sharp. The world outside was quiet except for the hum of early traffic and the faint smell of morning air. He opened his notebook and wrote at the top of a new page, Microcapital, investing without money. He smiled. The idea made him feel alive again. The game wasn't over. It had just changed its rules. He walked to the fruit stand from the day before. The owner greeted him warmly. still amazed by yesterday's success. "You made me more money in one morning than I usually make in 3, the man said. Warren replied, "Then let's make it for tomorrow." He proposed a deal. He would organize the flow of customers and pricing in exchange for a small commission. The seller laughed, but agreed. Buffett rearranged everything, simplified the prices, and made a big handwritten sign. "Buy 3, pay 2. Sales exploded before noon. As the crowd thinned, Warren leaned against the cart, wiping sweat from his forehead. "The secret," he said to himself, "isn't luck. It's removing friction." Every business, he thought, could double its results by simply removing confusion. Watching the satisfied customers walk away, he realized that he didn't miss the markets. The real market was right here in the street. That afternoon, he stopped by a thrift store to rest. The owner, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, recognized him from the newspaper photo about the fruit stand miracle. The store was quiet and disorganized. Clothes piled up like forgotten dreams. "You could double your sales," he said casually. She laughed. "Oh, yeah. How?" Warren spent the next hour rearranging the racks by color, cleaning the window, and hanging a funny sign that read, "2 shirts for the price of 1 emotion." By evening, her register was full. She handed him $20 and said, "You're a magician." He smiled. No magic, just math and empathy. As he left, he realized he had earned more that day helping others than he ever could chasing stocks. It wasn't about profit anymore, it was about progress. For the first time in decades, he felt the thrill of starting small again. With his savings, he bought a small wooden fruit cart for $52. It was cracked and wobbly, but sturdy enough to dream on. He painted it white and stenciled the name Buffett's Choice, Selected Fruits. When he rolled it out onto the street the next morning, people laughed, took photos, and bought apples just to talk to him. His first real business was born, not built with capital, but with credibility. Soon, regular customers appeared. Children called him Uncle Buffett. Some brought their parents to meet the kind old man who talked about value while selling bananas. A local journalist stopped by and asked, "Why fruit?" Warren grinned, "Because it's the only market where I can literally pick my profits." The interview ran in the Sunday paper. By Monday, lines formed at his cart. With the extra money, he hired his young friend from the original fruit stand. He taught him how to price, track, and adjust. "Don't try to sell expensive," Warren said. "Sell smart." Within days, the boy was running half the operation. Buffett looked on proudly. "That's compounding," he whispered. "Not of money, but of trust." At sunset, he closed the cart, counted over $200, and took a slow breath. It wasn't wealth, but it was momentum. He used part of it to buy fruit for the homeless. "Social dividends," he said with a smile as he handed out apples. He realized something powerful. Giving felt like earning. He opened his notebook and wrote, "Lesson 3, money grows slow, but value grows fast." CTA, if this story made you smile, leave a like. It helps others discover stories that prove wisdom is the best investment.
The morning air carried the sound of chatter and laughter around Buffett's fruit cart. What began as a way to survive had turned into something bigger. Locals no longer came just to buy fruit. They came to hear him talk. He'd turned the cart into a classroom without realizing it. "Knowledge," he told them, "is the only thing that grows faster than inflation." People nodded, unsure if it was philosophy or comedy, but they listened anyway. One young woman asked, "How do you know when to sell?" Warren picked up an orange. "See this? If you sell too soon, it's sour. Too late, it rots. The secret is timing. In business and in life." The crowd laughed and clapped. The old man with the fruit stand had become a legend. Every sentence he spoke seemed to stick in people's minds like a quote from a forgotten book. That afternoon, he decided to expand his idea. He found an abandoned garage a few blocks away and rented it for almost nothing. Dust covered the floor and the walls were cracked, but to Warren it looked like potential. He painted a sign and hung it over the entrance. "Buffett, a school of simple wealth. Learn to think like a billionaire without money." It was ridiculous, humble, and completely perfect. Inside, he arranged wooden crates into makeshift seats and used fruits and coins as props. When people came in, he greeted them like old friends. "Sit down. You already paid. With your curiosity." Laughter filled the room. He used oranges to teach patience, bananas to explain value, and pennies to illustrate compounding. Everyone understood. No charts, no jargon, just truth told with a smile. Word spread faster than he expected. The fruit seller he once helped began saving part of his profits. The thrift shop owner started organizing her books by week. Even the diner manager now tracked expenses and reinvested earnings. "The power isn't in money," Warren said one night. "It's in attention. Whatever you track, you improve." The crowd cheered like it was gospel. A local journalist wrote about his classes. "The Oracle of Omaha is back, only now he sells wisdom instead of stocks." Within days, people from neighboring towns came to see him. Some offered donations, others just wanted advice. Warren accepted neither. "The lesson loses meaning if it's for sale," he said. "I'm not rebuilding my fortune, I'm rebuilding perspective." With demand rising, he bought 2 more fruit carts and gave them to his former co-workers, the young waiter and the fruit seller. "Your turn," he said. "Grow it, teach it, share it." They looked at him in awe. He had become something between a mentor and a folk hero. Buffett's Choice was no longer just a fruit brand. It was a symbol of honest work and second chances. One day a reporter asked, "Why stay here? You could be rich again." Warren smiled. "Because here, my wealth compounds faster. Every lesson I teach pays interest in people." It wasn't about legacy anymore. It was about leaving something that couldn't be taken away. He watched as children ran by the fruit carts shouting, "Uncle Buffett!" and realized this was wealth. That night he sat under a flickering bulb in the garage, notebook open. He wrote slowly. Lesson 4. Wealth is freedom, and freedom is choosing what truly matters. He closed the notebook, leaned back, and listened to the hum of life outside. For the first time, he wasn't chasing success. He was surrounded by it. CTA. If you believe real wealth is about people, not money, subscribe. More stories like this are coming soon. Weeks passed, and Warren's garage school had become a heartbeat in Omaha. People from all walks of life stopped by. Cab drivers, shop owners, students, retirees. They came to buy fruit, yes, but mostly they came to listen. His words were simple, his tone gentle, but every line carried the weight of experience. You don't need millions to make an impact, he told them. You just need to start with what you have. One cold morning, a TV crew appeared. The reporter looked almost nervous. Mr. Buffett, the world's been talking about you. Are you really the Warren Buffett? He chuckled. Depends what you mean by really. The billionaire? He's gone. The teacher? Still here. The interview aired that night and went viral within hours. People everywhere were fascinated. The man who'd lost everything but found something greater. Donations and invitations started pouring in. Corporations wanted to partner. Universities wanted him to speak. Warren accepted only one offer, a small lecture at the local public high school. Standing in front of hundreds of teenagers, he said, You think being rich means having money in your account. But being truly rich means having wisdom in your heart when that account hits zero. The students gave him a standing ovation. Meanwhile, Buffett's choice fruit carts began spreading through the city. The people he had mentored were now mentoring others. Each cart carried a small note taped to the side. Lesson learned, shared forward. The city that once ignored him now lived by his lessons. Warren watched from his bench in the park, quietly proud. This, he thought, is compound interest of the soul. One afternoon, a sleek black car pulled up in front of the garage. A man in a suit stepped out, flanked by 2 assistants. Mr. Buffett, I'm from Berkshire Hathaway, he said. The board would like you to return. Your seat, your name, your legacy, it's all waiting. Warren smiled softly. Tell them I already came back. Just not to where they expected. The man hesitated. But sir, you could rebuild everything. The company, the empire. Warren interrupted gently. Empires crumble. People don't. I've already invested in something that grows forever. The man lowered his eyes. You're the freest man I've ever met. Warren smiled again. Freedom isn't in having more. It's in needing less. That evening, he sat alone in the park as the sun dipped low, the air golden and calm. He opened his notebook, the same one from his first day, and wrote, Lesson 5. Money is powerful. Money is... But purpose is invincible. He underlined it twice. then closed the book slowly. For the first time, he felt complete. Not successful. Complete. A small boy ran past, waving an apple. "Hey, Mr. Buffett, are you rich again?" Warren laughed softly. "More than ever, kid." The boy smiled and ran off. Buffett leaned back, eyes fixed on the sky, whispering, "I lost billions, but I found humanity." The words hung in the air like the glow of the sunset. He stayed there until the park lights turned on, the sounds of life surrounding him. The laughter, the footsteps, the faint rattle of a fruit cart in the distance. It all felt like music. Omaha had changed, but maybe it was Warren who had transformed the most. The man who once owned the world had finally learned how to belong to it. CTA. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that starting over isn't losing. It's learning. The city was quiet, wrapped in the soft hum of night. Warren walked slowly down the empty street, his notebook tucked under one arm, the same one that had carried every lesson of his new life. The streetlights flickered across his face, revealing a calm that money could never buy. He passed the reflection of his own image in a shop window. The same man, but lighter, freer, unburdened. He stopped at his usual bench in the park and sat down, the wood cool beneath his hands. Opening his notebook, he wrote one last line. "Money can change the world, but character changes people, and changed people change everything." He stared at the words for a long moment, smiling. Maybe, he thought, losing everything wasn't a punishment. Maybe it was a gift, a reminder of what it means to truly be alive. The wind moved gently through the trees, carrying laughter from somewhere nearby, the sound of a fruit cart closing for the night, children still calling his name. He looked up at the stars, his eyes glowing softly behind thin glasses. "I thought I was rich before," he whispered, "but I was just wealthy. This is richer." CTA. If this story touched your heart, leave a like. It helps us share more stories that remind the world that true wealth starts inside.